For my first visual, I have a base surface, level topography, natural and man-made land, and moderate to dense areas of foliage. There are warm temperatures here, cloud dynamics, multiple non-surface structures, movement by non-surface structures, wind-type sounds, and I have blue, gray, and green hues. For my initial flash sketches, I first have a natural land area with bright lights and mountains or steep peaks with rough textures. There is dense foliage that I've deducted is like a forest canopy. Next, I have man-made land with one surface structure. There's a surrounding natural environment with hilly areas, and I have a non-surface object above. For my next sketch, I have an up and down movement that looks sporadic and jagged. This is movement by an object, and I've labeled this movement F, as in Frank. Next, I'm picking up a busy environment outside of a structure. There's movement by subjects, walking activity, and casual attire. There are a few subjects inside the structure and bright lighting. Lastly, I have a base surface with level topography and man-made land. There are a few surface structures here, and I sense a lot of open space with minimal activity. Moving to the center of the target for focus 1, I perceived multiple subjects, a focused gathering, and these subjects are using or moving objects. I'm deducting that these subjects are working together on one object. I see activity inside and outside of a structure that I'm labeling structure Q. Then I have natural smells, a large man-made object on the base surface, and the base surface here feels hard, but with natural materials that I've deducted are stone and feel rough, uneven, and old. Continuing to probe here, looking at structure Q, this is a large structure in a very dynamic location. I have multi-directional movement by subjects, many subjects here both in groups and as individuals, and I'm deducting that the structure is a palace or some highly revered structure. Next, I have a flash sketch of the inside of structure Q at focus 1, which shows many different rooms or areas and subjects throughout. There are open spaces, multiple levels, and what feels like a mix of leisure and work activity by the subjects here. Moving to the most important event at focus 1, I'm picking up a man-made object with blue hues that I'm deducting has a chemical nature. I see the use of this object, and activity between the subjects looks like direct interactions. There's talking and like a meeting, negotiation, or some trading or exchange activity. I'm deducting that there's also some karmic activity here, like subjects are experiencing something that they did to other subjects, like a cycle. It does feel like there's harm involved, like actions from the subjects at structure Q have harmed other, what felt like smaller groups of subjects. And it feels like a disregard of consequences, maybe not a direct intention to harm, but now the subjects at structure Q are experiencing those consequences in what feels like backlash or limitations. This is a more conceptual harm, like economical, maybe not a physical attack. Moving to scene X and describing, I have two main male subjects. Originally, I see them on the same side or neutral, but now they're combative and opposing one another. There is a lot of emphasis and focus on disagreements, and the disagreement is taking away from many smaller things here. Getting a collective deep mind probe at scene X, I see a long history between these subjects, and I have a visual of what looks like a timeline that goes back far and shows a slow build-up to this current disagreement. It's possible this is becoming more personal than work-focused, like these subjects have no separation between their jobs and themselves. These subjects are no longer the representation that is expected of them, and they're now even unrecognizable to one another. Next, I'm moving to focus 2, and I have a man-made land area with a somewhat modern look and structures. There's gray and black hues, tall structures with multiple levels, and what feels like a busy urban environment with a dense area of subjects. There's a lot of work activity by subjects, but it does not appear to be a nice or pleasant area. Like there are no signs of wealth, enjoyment, or luxury. There's just work focus. Moving to scene R at focus 2, I'm seeing heavy surveillance or watching activity that's coming from both non-surface objects and surface objects. There's a noticeable energetic feel, like vibrating or electric energetics surrounding this area. My viewer feel is I would be uncomfortable here, but the subjects here seem either unbothered or unaware of the energy here. Continuing to probe, there's a focus on conceptual change rather than physical. Physically, the subjects here seem okay, but there are mental effects and an overall sense of lack. Moving to the lead subject, in charge of the surveillance I picked up, this is a male subject with a chunky or wide body type with dark hues hair and facial hair as well as formal attire. I've labeled him subject D as in dog, and doing a deep mind probe, I sense a focus on ownership or wealth. This subject wants to control the other subjects here, control their flow, their movement, their abilities. He's increasing and enforcing limitations and has a desire for a strict regime. My viewer feel towards subject D is he's evil and unfavorable. Next, moving to scene Y and describing, there's something fancy, like fancy attire or fancy interior decor, and I'm getting gold, metallic, and dark hues. I feel a pushing or forcing movement, like the forced movement of subjects, or they're getting rid of specific subjects. Probing into the movement F I initially picked up at focus 2, I have this very jagged up and down movement. And then probing for movement F at focus 1, there's much less variation, but still some bumps of up and downs here.
Hi everybody, here we have the Deep News Target Reveal, and here we have Shantae. Shantae, your session was really interesting. I have it pulled up here on the monitor right now, and you just presented it, and well, you don't know anything about the nature of this target, right?
That's right.
Okay, so let's just jump into the target reveal. Are you ready to hear it?
I'm ready.
Okay, so the target reveal, you can actually open that email. It says Deep News Do Not Open. Now you can open it.
Gotcha.
Why don't you just read off the first line at the top?
Okay. Oop. The impending U.S. economic collapse. Oh
yes,
dear.
that is the topic for this deep news. So basically, we had two focuses. The first focus was the most significant event that would help us in understanding the nature of the upcoming economic collapse or restructuring of the United States government. So when we say collapse, it doesn't entirely mean everything falling apart. It also includes the idea of a restructuring of our economic system. And for Focus 2, it was the most significant event that would help in understanding the nature of an economic collapse or restructuring of the United States government during target time for Focus 2. And your session was really great, like really interesting, because it, well, the thing that really stuck out to me the most was what you first did on page 7, which is something you labeled Movement F.
Right.
And that, honestly, that just looks like a stock chart to me. And it seems like it's erratic, but it goes up and stuff like that. And then you continue with charting Movement F across Focus 2 and Focus 1. And it seems for Focus 1, it seems to be a bit less volatile, but then Focus 2, it seems far more volatile. So that's the real difference. I mean, it seems like we don't have a solid trajectory up or down. I mean, the last direction in the first appearance of Movement F seemed to be up. The Focus 2, the last trajectory seemed to be down, but it's not like a slope. It's more like just volatility and then not so much volatility. So I'm expecting that from your session, it seems like there's, if Movement F means a stock chart, which it kind of just looks like one, then maybe it's a measure of volatility. But other than that, looking at just the hard data of your sessions, you have a lot of images of people looking like they're working. You have these some sort of disagreements going on, and a lot of stuff that seems like work life. I mean, you have these big structures, lots of subjects moving around objects inside of these structures. You even say inside of one structure, structure Q on your page 12, that it feels like this is a mixture of leisure and work activity. I mean, it just seems very economic. It seems like this is a very economic focused target. And the fact that you got all that completely blind was very reassuring. It was very interesting. And so it's my speculation that movement F means a stock chart or just a general chart of economic activity. But it seems to match with a lot of the stuff that you've been picking up in terms of just this being work focused and some events that seem to be more volatile and disagreement-ish. And yeah, it's pretty interesting. So anyway, let me be quiet for a little bit, and you lead with some either questions or comments.
Oh, sure. Yeah, because I'm looking through my session at everything, and also like on my page 14, I felt that the change and the harm here was more related to something like economics, like more of a concept rather than like some physical harm happening or something like that. And then also, yeah, there was a strong feeling like, yes, these people are working, there's a lot of working, but there's, that lack of actual being able to enjoy the luxuries that work can bring. And I imagine with a collapse, whether that looks like an extreme collapse or just like a simple, things are changing, I think there will be a change in our access to certain luxuries that we're used to. So,
yeah, it's very interesting. I mean, we also see just recently in contemporary politics and just the mainstream news, we see that Donald Trump has been talking about all these new deals that he's been doing. He openly told the public, invest in the stock market now because things are going to get crazy in the future, in a good way, as he's advertised, because of those deals. So we'll see what happens in the future. Only time can tell what's actually going to happen. But something that was really interesting, if you look at statements that he's actions and statements that are going on in the White House, and we also look at Doge going on and getting rid of a lot of government jobs and restructuring budgets and stuff like that, basically auditing the government, I guess. They in a sort of in a different way. In your page 16, I believe, right before you go on to focus 2, you're describing scene X, and you describe that there's this long history between these subjects, and there's this slow buildup of this current disagreement that you're probing into. And that sounds very interesting, because that sounds very much like this long history between people in government and I guess the other people who are just changing things. I guess you can even say that the people who are in government who are approving the stuff that Doge is doing. And I don't know if this actually has to do specifically with Doge, but clearly this buildup of a disagreement and then finally solid action being taken where they say that this no longer is the representation that is expected of him. These are words directly from your session, people being unrecognizable to each other. So actual action taking place, all economic, not violence-based action taking place, which is work-focused. And I don't know, you have this stuff about people feeling like there's no separation between their jobs and themselves and things sort of becoming more personal. So it's I can see a lot of parallels with contemporary politics, but just that becoming more exacerbated from where it is in our current period in time right now. And that's really interesting, because that does sort of imply heavy restructuring, more than what we've seen right now so far. And that's interesting. I want to see what happens in the future, because your session does seem to really give quite a bit of insight towards change, big change when it comes to economic giants that are representing, I guess, the general U.S. economy.
Yeah. Yeah, even with the long history, it just feels like this is not something that's, just an overnight change. Like, there's some sort of, I guess we could call it plan, but just it feels like people were able to see small parts of the plan, but not big parts, and now like we see the bigger parts. So yeah, like you say, time will tell. I don't know.
No, definitely. I mean, it's a really interesting thing. Also, just to list off from the Target reveal, Scene X actually had a title to it. That was the most public scene among the common people, which is the most public scene among the common people of the most important event for Focus One. Focus One being the most significant event that would help in understanding the nature of the economic collapse or restructuring of the U.S. government. So it's really interesting. Oh, and this actually has to. I misspoke earlier. Focus One specifically has to do with May through December of 2025. I should have mentioned that earlier. And Focus 2 is the most significant event with the understanding and nature of the economic collapse or restructuring of the U.S. government during target time for Focus 2. Focus 2 being 2026. So that's farther in the future. So yeah.
I see.
Yeah. And really, it's basically, if you bring us back to Movement F, knowing that Focus 2 is 2026 and Focus 1 is the rest of 2025, Focus 2 is where you saw that volatility for Movement F.
Absolutely.
And so if we think that there's volatility in economic states of the United States right now with the restructuring, people getting fired and new deals and all that type of stuff, it seems like the actual effect of that from your session probably is in store for Focus 2. And that's also where you're starting to see stuff like some pushing subjects. So I'm sure some people are get a little more aggressive, even though I don't see any major violence. You have these major surveillance programs, it looks like with Scene R, which would be the most important event for Focus 2, which is the big thing dealing with the economic collapse or restructuring of the U.S. government in 2026. And yeah, that's interesting. Mass surveillance is right there in your session on page 18.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess the other thing with the volatility, I mean, like you said, regardless of what this collapse looks like, there's going to be changes, and I think we wouldn't see a lot of the effects until, like 2026 or just with a bit more time. So I think that tracks in some way. Like, optimistically, if the changes overall are better in some economic way, I think it's still going to be, things are going to be all over the place is what I think. Yeah. It was going to be an adjustment period, I guess.
An adjustment period. That's nice to say it that way. Yeah, it's definitely going to be a shakeup. What's also interesting is how unaware the common people seem to be for your Scene R, which is basically the scene of the most important event for Focus 2, being that 2026 timeline of the economic restructuring or collapse. And it really shows that the people who are being surveilled by these massive programs, they're either unbothered or unaware that they're being surveilled the way that they're doing by this massive program. So it's really interesting. It seems like for at least a number of people, maybe even just the majority of the general public, these changes, at least when it comes to the surveillance side of these changes, so further government action to engage in surveillance, that seems tied up with this economic restructuring, and it also seems like it's not a big public issue in the sense that people aren't really paying attention to that happening. So yeah, I mean, now that we know about it, it'd be interesting to see if we hear anything about it, just paying attention to those key words, surveillance programs and whatever those types of things could be. Maybe it's like a Palantir thing. I don't know. I'm speculating at this point. But your session definitely was interesting. Yeah.
Thanks.
Any other further questions or comments?
Well, yeah, I think like my movement for focus 1, as far as it like not looking as volatile compared to the focus 2, like if we're looking at right now, things are, at least to me, already seem somewhat volatile. So I would imagine, and that's affecting how a lot of people are working and looking for work. So I imagine with so much uncertainty with our economic status, like, people might have to focus more on work and, just accept that this surveillance is maybe, it wouldn't be their main focus of like something to change or to fight back against if they're so focused on work, which is what I was feeling. It's like they're just working. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, it's to implement a more widespread surveillance program, if that was something that is going to come to fruition, it would probably need like maybe a boogeyman to justify it, and I don't really think there's any shortage of instances that a government could pick out to say like, okay, this is the boogeyman, we're going to implement this surveillance program to make sure we can tackle that or stop this, and that would make sense in terms of pacifying the public if that's the trajectory they take, or if it's just a silent rollout. Who knows? I mean, it's going to be an interesting time, but clearly, as you just said, the volatility seems to really pick up in 2026, which is pretty interesting. It's I agree. It seems pretty volatile right now, so it's 2026 is going to be a wild ride, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
All right. Any final questions or comments?
Nope.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Shantae. This was a great session, and thank you everybody else for watching.
Thanks.